Good evening, Yonkers. It's Freddie Vasquez, Basement Politics Unfiltered. Today is Friday, August 26, 2022. Join me live. I have a special guest, former police lieutenant Anthony DiMaggio. Tune in. Good evening, folks. It's Freddie Vasquez, Basement Politics Unfiltered. Tonight, special guest, former Yonkers Police Lieutenant Anthony DiMaggio. Going to come on and talk about his experience as a Yonkers police officer. Also, what it's like being a Yonkers police, working the streets here in the city. Help me welcome Anthony DiMaggio.
How you doing, Freddie?
Hello.
What's up, Fred? How you doing, pal?
Good. How you doing? Good evening. How you doing? Good to finally, speak with you. I know you've reached out for a while. We've been talking, I should say, communicating for a little bit now, and now you're on this show. And so it's good to have you. Thank you for joining me. How you doing?
My pleasure. Good. Yeah,
I want to start off, just give you your internet's a little, I think it's choppy. It was fine before we did the quick test that we do. But anyway, let's just get to it. Just give this folks who may, be watching a little bit of background, who you are, and why you're on the show today.
Yeah, okay. My name's Anthony DiMaggio. I was a Yonkers police lieutenant for the better part of 15 years. I was terminated by the department in November. The case is probably going to end up in the courtroom some point in the near future.
Okay.
And for that reason, I can talk about some of the things that happened. I can't talk about all of them, but I think we'll cover some of the major stuff. And, we'll talk about some other things as well.
Absolutely. You got, you're getting right into some stuff. All right. Let me ask you first, what was your experience like as a police officer here in the city of Yonkers, as a lieutenant? Tell us your experience. Tell the folks, most of us are obviously not police officers, what it's like.
Well, it's a unique kind of life, that's for sure. There's really no other kind of occupation out there that you can really compare it to. Even the military. I was in the Air Force many years ago, and being a cop is pretty unique. I liked it. I really did for a lot of years in the beginning. I still liked it towards the end as well, but some of the decisions that were made managerially were, less than wise in my opinion. So I really liked it. Just like the way things are going towards the end.
Well, I want to say, your experience, it's your experience. And I do want to say that shout out to the Yonkers Police Department. It's not bashing any of the officers or anything like that. We're just talking about your experience that you had with the Yonkers Police Department. You were a police officer 15 years and you were a lieutenant. Let's just get right into it. You were fired. Right. There were some issues with, upper, higher ranking officers, or, whatever you call it. Tell us what happened in your situation.
Well, ultimately, the reason that they fired me was because they couldn't leverage me into signing an agreement that included a clause to waive my rights to sue them. See, when they see a lawsuit coming, they try to arrange things to get you to. They try to strong arm you. They arrange for the circumstances to try to strong arm you into signing an agreement waiving your right to sue them. When they can't do that, and they see that they're going to get sued anyway, they just fire you, because if they're going to get sued anyway, then what's a little wrongful termination, sprinkle it on top. When and at least if they go that route, they make it difficult for you to pay attorneys. Right. See, the idea is when they're going to get sued, stop the money flow from the city's bank account to your bank account to your attorney's bank account. And when you're no longer making a six-figure salary, you're not as appealing to attorneys as you were before. So that's the strategy. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, let's start. Why did you get fired? What was the issue? Where you were terminated. What was the reason you were terminated? Or at least let's start with the official reason you were terminated.
on paper. So the reason on paper was under Article 73 of the New York State Civil Service Law. Uh, when a civil service member has been out, sick or injured, related to some sort of injury or illness that had nothing to do with their duties, like in other words, they didn't get hurt or sick on the job. That part of the law doesn't really matter. But basically, if you've been out for a year or more, they can fire you. And you can go through an appeals process to try to get back. But that's not what they were trying to do. That wasn't their first go-to option. What they were trying to get me to do was to sign an agreement that afforded them a lot of protections, because it was a pretty clear case of, workplace retaliation.
Well, what was what was the issue you were having? I mean, why were they? If you're saying, you're saying that they wanted to fire you, they attempted to try and fire you before. What was the issue that you were having? I guess with YPD brass. Is that you said? What was the
Well, one night a couple of years ago, it was late December 2019. I got into what was basically a workplace dispute with certain detective sergeant who was dear friends with then police commissioner John Mueller, who's a deranged lunatic of the highest magnitude.
Okay. Okay.
Long history of workplace retaliation. Documented, courts have confirmed it. Total evidence fabricator.
And so now you're referring to, I just want to quick, if people don't know, you're referring to the former police commissioner, John Mueller, who just, resigned not too long ago.
Right. Right. And I'm not just some jaded ex-employee. I mean, you can look up this guy's history all over the internet. I mean, you can go to Google and just type in Montero versus City of Yonkers, and it'll tell you everything you need to know, because long before Mayor Mike Spano appointed him, and I got to be very careful here because I have dear relatives and friends who still work for the city. Oh, that's cute. Some people are commenting.
Yeah, someone said, I remember him from when I worked at Broadway Diner. He was one of the great ones out there. That's a friend shame. That's a friend's shame.
Thank you,
that's a damn shame. They say that's a damn shame. Great guy. A YPD effed up on this one. They lost a great cop. Well, yeah, that's good. Obviously, people think you're a great cop, and that's good. So, but with the issue, you had an issue with John Mueller, the former police commissioner.
A lot of people had issues with John Mueller. A lot of
Mueller.
Yeah, he's a special case. I mean, we'll get to him, but essentially, I had an argument. I was a patrol boss, and I essentially had an argument with some detectives and their boss, who was working at the time. He was a detective sergeant. Everybody who's watching this right now who's a cop knows who I'm talking about. I don't really feel the need to say his name. So on the night of the dispute in question, he left me a voicemail where he's in no uncertain terms threatening that they're gonna destroy my career. He didn't quite say that, but I mean, you have the voicemail. Do you want to?
Yeah. You want me to play that? You emailed me. So I'm gonna play a voicemail here that Mr. DiMaggio here emailed me prior to coming on the show. Here, 1 second.
First saved voice message. Sent yesterday, Monday, December 30th at 10:11 p.m. Duration 35 seconds.
Hey, listen, I know you're a lieutenant, but you have a problem with the detectives, you call detective sergeant. If you have a problem with that, you call detective lieutenant. I don't know who the fuck you think you are, but you want to play this game, you're going to lose it. I'll tell you right now. I don't know who the fuck you think you are. Save this message and play to whoever you want. Okay? There's a chain of command. If you have an issue with a sergeant, you call my lieutenant. If you have an issue with a detective, you call the sergeant. Don't answer my phone call. I don't give a fuck about you. Wake up.
Oh.
End of message.
Okay. And so he said, if you have an issue, there's a chain of command. And what do you mean by that?
Well, don't go by what he says, because he has no idea what chain of command means. I mean, if he had any idea what chain of command means, he wouldn't be calling somebody who outranks him to leave that kind of a voicemail.
So you outranked this gentleman. So first of all, who was the gentleman on that voicemail?
I mean, it's again, I want to be very careful about what details I give out, because this is going to end up in the courtroom or something.
But you outranked him.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Okay.
He was a detective sergeant, and I was a patrol lieutenant.
Okay.
And you know, Lieutenant Al rank sergeant, and detective sergeant is just an assignment. Detective anything, detective sergeant, detective lieutenant. That's just an assignment. It's not really a promotion. Um, so there was a dispute going on, and he got a little ticked off that I didn't answer the phone for him. So he leaves me that voicemail. Now these people, they're what you call tech-tards. They don't understand technology. He thought when he left me that voicemail that the only way anybody was ever going to hear it is if I put my phone to their ear and played it for them. They don't understand. It's just an audio file. You can download that,
Right.
save it different ways, send it different ways, emails, like so.
Well, it sounded like he didn't care if you recorded the message. He said that, I don't care if you record this message or what. I mean, he seemed pretty confident that nothing, will come about it.
Well, he said save it and play it for whoever you want. Like, in other words, he thinks that in order for me to play it, like for someone else to hear it, I have to actually save it in my phone and play it for them on, in my phone to their ear, where no one's gonna, nobody else is gonna know that I played it for
Right.
them. And
Right.
things are gonna stay, very Yonkers, very.
But tell me what was the? I mean, what's the beef? What is the? I'm trying to understand. Like
It was just, it was the type of dispute that happens on a daily basis, really, in just about every police department across the country. It's who's going to handle what? There's a crime scene. Detectives maybe feel that they shouldn't be included in the investigation. The patrol boss thinks that they should be.
So it was just a dispute like that, and then it kind of got out of hand.
Yeah, right.
And then
he's always drinking on the job. We're talking about a guy who made probably $250,000 a year per.
Wow.
His last 3 years to sit and drink in his buddy's jewelry store. Like on duty all the time. He was just that arrogant, and he was that protected at the highest levels of the department.
Right. Well, I was going to say, if you outranked him, you had some silly dispute with him, and because of that, he was, angered to the point where now you're saying that he went to get you fired.
Well, when I reported the voicemail, he knew about it. Obviously, someone told him about it. He went to John Mueller, the commissioner, and they did to me what John Mueller and the other Olsenettes have done to many other people. Well, that's what we call them, the Olsenettes, because it's John Mueller, that's Keith Olson's boys, and the guy that I'm talking about, whose name I don't want to say, on this.
And Keith Olson is the president of the PBA. Just want to, if you don't know, Keith Olson is the president of PBA.
Guy within the police department.
Right, he's the president of PBA currently. He's the talk of I guess the news or whatever because of the contract with the Yonkers Police Department. They're negotiating. The mayor recently spoke about it, saying that he was asking too much, although he was a good, a great PBA president and a dear friend. Mm-hmm. And so you're saying otherwise.
No, I mean, I never really had a personal problem with Keith, but he's the one who's responsible for John Mueller being installed as the police commissioner, because certain arrangements he had with the mayor and the Spanos for a lot of years, there was a lot of quid pro quo going on, and John Mueller was really Keith Olson's payoff. Keith Olson was pushing very hard for John Mueller to be the commissioner when Mayor Spano first won and became the mayor, and it was agreed upon. It was agreed upon beforehand that if Keith, through the PBA endorsement Mike Spano's way, and agreed to, play ball in certain other ways, then Edmund Hartman would be pushed out. Mike Spano won, and then a Yonkers guy, so in other words, someone from the YPD would become the new police commissioner. Spano didn't guarantee him that it would be Mueller, but that's what Keith wanted, and it ended up being Chucky Gardner, which was the best decision Mike Spano ever made, because Chucky Gardner was a gem, of a human being and of a police commissioner. But ultimately, Keith Olson wanted his ultimate payoff, which was going to be to let John Mueller be the commissioner, and he got it.
And is that why Tim Hodges never became commissioner?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I heard very great guys.
Wanted Hodges, including the younger Spano brothers. It was the older ones who. There's a bit of a split, from what I understand. This my sources tell me. There's a little bit of a split. A couple of different factions within the Spano family. The older ones, the mayor, and a couple couple of his brothers, obviously Nick and Lenny and Johnny. And it's rumored that Lenny and Johnny are the ones who really run the police department. Not when Chucky was there, but definitely through Mueller and through the current police commissioner. It's kind of conventional wisdom and common knowledge. But
well, I don't know if it's common knowledge. Definitely I didn't know about that.
Within the department.
Oh, okay, within the department, right. Yeah. And so Chris Sapienza, the new police commissioner who took over after John Mueller retired or resigned. How do you feel about him? What do you think about current commissioner?
Chris, I mean, I know him personally. I don't think he's not a bad guy. He's certainly not the deranged lunatic that John Mueller was. He's not a sadist. Mueller's a sadist. He's a megalomaniac.
I guess that's a good thing. Yeah.
Well, no, it's a sadist. A sadist.
No. I mean, it's a good thing Chris Sapienza is, and I'm saying.
Oh yeah, he's certainly a better guy. But
maybe it's a good thing.
Really making many decisions for himself up there. And again, I have to be very careful because my sister works in his office. Like that's how. And my sister worked in John Mueller's office too. That's how insane the situation really is. It's like, here you go. Here right. You got to come in and look at my sister every day. Yet you're going to arrange for the circumstances of my termination because I didn't answer the phone call from your buddy one night at work. It's like that's just right. I mean, plenty about how the city of Yonkers works. So is the name of the game,
right? And so this all stems from that silly incident, and then they worked this hard to get you fired from, and so but they went to great lengths to get you fired. I mean, even including psychologists, right? That you mentioned. So tell me a little bit about that.
Oh well, that's their go-to play. I mean, I saw that you were talking a little bit about another situation in the family court with where it was quite apparent that the forensic psychiatrist or psychologist involved or whatever he was clearly playing ball with one side against the other.
Right. I talked about in that they use, they all collude together, right? The judge, and I'm talking about family court, things of that nature. A lot of families have come to me and, hurting and crying. And they tell me about the judges colluding with the prosecutors and these law guardians and then psychologists and, who they use to, deem them, incapable, I guess, of having the children or, out of their minds to make them look crazy. And that's what happened to one woman who's, I believe, is still currently in jail because her husband did that to her. And so you saying something like that happened to you in order for them to get you removed from the police department. Tell me about that.
The city of Yonkers keep crooked shrinks in contract. People. Psychology, psychiatry, it's a market like any other, right? I mean, it's a service that some people who are trained in it provide to other people, right? So if you're underperforming in that market, if you're a shrink of whatever variety and you're underperforming in that market, well, what might you do? You might seek out a contract with an organization that you're going to do steady work for. You know what I mean?
And so you're going to play ball. You're going to, produce the results that they're looking for. So in your case, that's what happened, right? So what was it that the psychologist said about you, or what was, in the report?
The shrink wrote a 7-page report that made me sound like I should be living in a padded room. I mean, you walk in and well, first of all, we should talk about a little bit about the shrinks themselves and what kind of purposes they serve, for the city. They're very, very powerful people in the sense that, I think I told you when we spoke earlier, a psychiatrist's opinion is like a diamond. You know, the only thing that can scratch a diamond is.
Right. Yeah. I learned today. Another diamond. I don't know why I didn't know that.
Right. Another diamond. Right. Or at least that's what they say. Only a diamond can scratch another diamond.
So you're basically saying that only another psychologist can kind of override another psychologist's, determination, right? Or assessment.
But they're all,
they all work together.
Find one to do that.
Right.
They tend not to overrule colleagues, so it's very difficult to.
So in your case, you're saying it was difficult to get another psychologist to get an assessment that was different from the one that they, initially you
Once
had.
you try to appeal, the first thing the city does is they take the report that their quack in contract with them wrote up, and they send it to the next guy, and he looks at it and says, "Well, I'm not going to overrule this guy. Like,
Right.
what do I know about you?" So it's all a rigged game. I mean, you heard in the voicemail, the guy tells me, "You want to play this game, you're going to lose it." So what he's saying is, we're going to rig everything against you, and we're going to destroy your career.
And
That's what
that's
they did.
eventually
That's
what
what they
happened.
did. That's the Yonkers way.
And so I know you can't talk a lot about what you got going on. You have potential lawsuits and stuff like that. But what can you tell me about what's currently going on? And what are your
My
you're doing
particular
too?
situation, or you just
Yeah.
want to talk about the department in general?
Well, no, what's going on with your situation currently? Just because obviously you got fired. They eventually got you removed from the police department. So now, what are you working to do now? What is your recourse? I guess, for lack of a better word.
Well, I'm going to have to seek recourse through the courts, obviously, and I'm gearing up for that, taking the appropriate steps. But when you and I, first became friendly and started talking, I didn't really see any harm in addressing the public about some of the things that I know that go on in the city of Yonkers and at the higher ranks of the Yonkers Police Department. The Yonkers Police Department, and especially these days, is really an organization that you would be proud for your son and your daughter to be a part of. And you can thank Chucky Gardner for a lot of the reforms that he made during his 8 years as the police commissioner. He really, when he left, he really handed John Muller a potty-trained puppy with the YPD, and it's a stellar police department. And
So
I drive around, I see faces doing traffic and things like that. People that I don't even know, and they look like kids to me. I mean, I'm only 40, but they look so young, and I've never seen them before. And you can tell that he made a lot of the right changes.
So what do you say? I mean, how do you look at the police department now, in terms of their performance and stuff? They do get a lot of, credit from the mayor. I oftentimes, give them a lot of credit and stuff like that. I know when I was growing up in the city of Yonkers in the 90s, late 80s, I heard the stories. It was rough, but I know that has changed a lot. I know I've gotten to know a lot of police officers recently, and they, seem to be friendly, treat me good. I got no problems with them. How do you feel about the direction the police department is headed?
I mean, as far if you wanted to use economic terms, I mean, it's the wind is at their back, sort of. I mean, it's things are moving in the right direction. There was a little bit of a recession, if you wanted to use economic terms again, when they appointed John Muller to run the place.
Right.
But,
and what do you mean by that? I mean, what was it that you feel that he did, with the police department that wasn't good?
Well, I mean, it's I suppose I could only assume you don't know the man at all.
I've met him a few times. I have.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So,
I mean,
yeah,
I don't know him very well, but I met him.
I mean, I worked for him as a captain, and he's just. I don't want to spend all of our time together going on a rant about his character, but he's just, he's not a guy that.
Well, not necessarily about him, but just what was it that happened? You feel that it was negative. What negative effect he had on the Yonkers Police Department? You're saying, he wasn't that great of a commissioner. He was a bad choice.
Well, in all fairness, they put me out. They arranged for the circumstances initially of my suspension without pay. That was long before they terminated me, and really, I was out for most of the time that he was the police commissioner. I wasn't at work because it was very early in his tenure as the police commissioner that all of this happened.
Right.
And then they put me out. So I was in contact with some people from work. Still have a lot of friends in the YPD, But let's just say that he was only there 3 years. So they got him out. They got rid of him before he could really cause too much havoc. And it was really after the mayor and his family learned about what was going on in my situation that they really sort of read him the riot act. Or so I heard. I mean, I can't confirm this.
And so what do you mean by that? I mean, what do you mean that when they found out what he was? Good.
When they appointed him, he had already had a documented history of being, the kind of guy who targets people and fabricates evidence and launches fraudulent investigations, just things that are just, you would never think that a person running a police department, a 600-person police department, would be that kind of a person. But that's just the nature of Yonkers politics, isn't it? I mean, it's so. I mean, like I said, if you go to and you read a little bit about that case, Montero versus City of Yonkers, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You know, this was a guy who, because he challenged Keith Olson during a couple of union meetings, um, he was vocally challenging some of the decisions that Keith had made when it came to how Keith dealt with management. At the time was Edmund Hartnett was the police commissioner, and
you're talking about referring to Montero. He was
now Montero worked in the Special Investigations Unit, which, by the way, is the investigation unit that within the detective division that handles the background checks for people trying to become cops, and handles conversations with the doctors who do the psychological fitness for duty evaluations. So it's a very important unit, and it's a very desirable unit to work in as a cop, for various reasons that are not really worth going into. But he worked in that unit, and at the time, John Mueller was the commanding officer of that unit. Now, Keith Olson and John Mueller are like this, you know. So Keith must have went to John. Ray's challenged me at meetings. Now, Keith Olson, being the PBA president, was John Mueller's ticket to becoming the police commissioner.
Mm.
You know how that kind of stuff works,
Right?
right? The union and the mayor, they play ball with each other. You know, and with Keith and Mike Spano, they're really in bed together to a high degree, and it's really no secret. So if Mueller was ever going to become the police commissioner, he needed Keith to stay the PBA president. So when it got back to John, that Ray Montero was openly criticizing Keith and was probably planning on running for a spot, that's when the wheels of the retaliation started going in motion. You know, they transferred him out of the Special Investigations Unit. They put him on the desk down at the DD. They cut him off from overtime. They launched a fraudulent investigation into certain overtime slips that he had put in for, and that they denied him overtime pay. They were writing things on his locker. I mean, you can read all about the case.
Right.
But essentially, when Ray sued, and they tried to get him off of the payroll with a shrink that was working for the department at the time. But the problem then was that the commissioner was Chucky Gardner, and Mueller couldn't pick the doctor. You know what I mean? So they sent the recommendation up to Chucky. Let's get this guy to a doctor. He's got all these problems. Chucky sent him to the honest doctor that Chucky was using at the time. And the guy said to Ray, "This sounds political. You're fine. Go back to work."
Wow.
Ray goes back to work, ends up filing a lawsuit. The courts confirm, ultimately, upon appeal, that Mueller and Keith Olson and all their buddies, Brian Moran and them, who now retired, that they did all this. They engaged in this wicked, workplace retaliation mission against Montero, fraudulent investigations. So now, wait a minute. This case was settled years ago. You can read about it all over the internet.
Right.
The courts confirmed the guy to be an evidence fabricator, essentially. And you're going to make him the police commissioner?
Over a guy like Tim Hodges?
Over a guy like Tim Hodges, who was just, the best.
That's what I hear. Actually, I'm looking at his sign right now. It's funny. Yeah, I hear Tim Hodges is a great guy, and he is. And everybody says that. And I've spoken with Tim a few times, and he is. He's a good guy. I really like him a lot. He's
well respected. He's got good leadership skills, and he's a leader. He's a leader. John Mueller's not a leader. He's a pay to play pick. That sort of a thing. And, whether money was actually exchanged or it's just being in bed with the union, whatever it was.
And I want to get to that. With the union. You talked about Keith Olson. The mayor mentioned him in a few days ago in an interview that he did with Yonkers Voice, and he said he was a great president, and that's a dear friend. Right. And so explain that to the folks who don't understand how that relationship works, maybe, or the, police commissioner position, the mayor, and, how's that work with, negotiations? I know, you haven't been there for the recent negotiation, or maybe the last contract, correct? You were still there for that one. But just tell me
about 10 years ago, though,
Well, so tell me about that. Tell me how that relationship impacts the negotiations and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, when I was there, I was still a PBA member at the time. Actually, I got promoted to sergeant in 2014, and at the time, those negotiations were going on. I think it was around 2012. No, it was probably late 2013, because I remember that when you get promoted to sergeant, you switch unions. You go from being Patrolmen's Benevolent Association as a cop,
Right.
to the CLSA, the
Yes,
Captains,
yeah.
Lieutenants, and Sergeants Association. So you switch unions. So I remember being at one of the PBA meetings that I knew was going to be one of my last, and so I didn't really have too much of a stake in what was going on there because I was about to switch unions. But I went, you know, just to, because I was still a PBA member, and I just wanted to see what was going on with the contract negotiations because it could affect the way the CLSA is going to negotiate with the city as well. I would later find out that the CLSA is a total scam, but you know, at the time, so I remember Keith, what he was essentially saying that he didn't want to bring any of the terms of the negotiations, you know, any of the proposed terms of the contract to the membership because he didn't want open debate about it. And I remember that always stuck in my head. I'm like, so this is going to be, you know, a hatchet job. He's gonna agree to favorable terms for the city, and he's gonna get something in return for himself. You know, and it's kind of common knowledge that Keith has friends and family who have all city jobs throughout different departments in the city, and you know, stuff like that. So I mean, a certain amount of that I think is to be expected. But really, the thing that had gotten under a lot of people's skin was that there was some change in the way the medical procedure went. That was there was some major concession made as far as the 207C law, where the burden of proof was shifted from the city to prove that, you know, a cop who's out injured is fine and come back to work. And then it was the way it changed with the contract was that,
Right.
you know, now the burden's on the cop. Well, the city says you're good to come back to work, and you know, the cop who's out, his doctor says no, he's not. But you know, now it gave the city all kinds of powers that they didn't have before. I can't really say too much about it, so I don't want to speculate too much because it didn't really affect me. Like I said, I was
So let me ask
you. Union. Plus, I was never a guy that was out injured often, so I don't really know how it affected the guys who were. I do know that they took sort of a hit on it though, and it was kind of a big issue that people had with Keith.
Let me ask you, with the current negotiations, so you mentioned something about Keith, you know, and negotiating, you know, behind closed doors, and he may have gotten something for himself and given a better deal for the city. Do you think that's what he may be doing now? Like, you know, and, you know, trying to kind of hold the city up and say, hey, we want this. And then, you know, okay, I'll give concessions on that, but then this is what I want for myself, right? If in order to do that and give the city what they're looking for. Is that what he's doing? Like, right, putting them up against the spots so they could then, you know, kind of almost like shaking them down a bit. You know what I mean? For himself more though.
I can't say that for a fact. You know, like I said, it's been about 2.5 years since I've been to work, even, and even before that, I wasn't a PBA member since 2014. But you know, I heard a lot of rumors about the degree to which Keith was in bed with Spanos. A lot of people told me that they controlled him outright, that he does everything that they want. You know, I don't know if it's quite that intense, but I did start to believe a lot of it when John Mueller was appointed the police commissioner, because he's just a guy that no serious governor, and when I say governor, I just mean an elected official like Mike Spano. No one making a serious decision would ever look at this guy twice and think that's the guy that I want running my 600-person police department in the year 2019. He's not just unqualified for these jobs. He's the exact kind of guy that you should be looking to keep away from that kind of a position, because there's so much power involved with it. So when he got picked, I said, "Oh, it's got to be true. I mean, this has to be Mike Spano letting Keith Olson put his buddy in as police commissioner. It's the only thing that I can think of, for whatever reason, for whatever benefit that he himself, the mayor, incurred."
Well, do you think
the best choice? I mean,
do you think the mayor did that? You know, if he did do that to maybe, you know, hope that Keith would, you know, be easier in negotiating in the contracts, because, you know, now they're, you know, the mayor's saying we just can't afford the terms that they're asking for, that Keith Olson's asking for. So maybe if I do him a little favor, he'll do me a little favor in negotiating, right. You know. I mean, and in a way, that's the mayor kind of, you know, maybe it's not the best choice, but he feels like, you know, I have to do the best for the city in terms of economically, you know. And so sometimes, you know, and that's the thing about business. Sometimes, you know, you have to make tough choices sometimes. And I try to talk to people, and I tell people that sometimes, you know, it may not be a decision you like, but sometimes it has to be done for the greater good. Is that maybe that kind of thing with the mayor more so than he's just in bed with Keith and he wants to do it.
Well, I mean, as far as the things that are being said, being stated publicly, I mean, you got to take that stuff with a grain of salt, because I kind of feel like both sides are sort of obligated to sort of put on a show like they're fighting with each other. Like, say you're Keith Olsen and
Right.
it's contract time. You haven't had a contract for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden, one day, look, we came to terms and we have a contract out of the blue with no public fighting or anything like that. It kind of looks like you're in bed with the mayor because you came up with the contract so quickly. So I think that, putting on a little bit of a show, writing some article in whatever it was, the Yonkers Times that he wrote.
Yeah.
And
the op-ed that he did in Yonkers Times.
Yeah. The YPD is, which they are, but I mean, he really didn't make any specific demands. He just kind of wrote an article that said, the YPD is great, and making a plea to the public, tell the mayor to give us a fair contract. And it's kind of like par for the course, something that's going to happen just about every time negotiation talks come around, contract talks come around. I mean, I remember Eddie Armour, the old PBA president, did something similar the last time around. He put out something. I don't remember which outlet.
Yeah,
it was basically the same.
Yeah, just make it look like we already know what the terms are going to be. We already have them figured out. When it comes time, when we're ready to announce them, we will announce them. But in the meantime, we're just gonna kind of act like we're fighting over this. You know what I mean, and create a show, so to speak, right?
Right.
So I could see that. But someone had reached out to me, a source actually very close to insiders, and people involved in that actually, and said that they had agreed to some terms already. Everyone agreed. The fire department had agreed. They already had their, the YPD, and then Keith Olsen pulled them out, and then now he wants more. So that's what someone told me. So I don't know. I guess I know you haven't been in the thing, so you don't know. But that's what I heard. So I don't know how true that is. If so again, I'm just trying to figure out if it is a show, or maybe Keith Olsen is pushing. They are buddies, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. What is the goal? I mean, what's the goal, right? Tell me, what do you think is the goal?
What I can guarantee you is that So I didn't read whatever statement it was that the mayor put out about his relationship with Keith. It's very cozy, I can tell you that. You know what I mean?
They said they're dear friends.
They have it's not just friendship. They have a very cozy business relationship as well. I can guarantee you that much. I mean, for years there's been rumors floating around about Nick funneling union cash to Nick Spano's lobbying firm up in Albany under the pretense of well, you're going to lobby for legislation that we want, and you're going to fight legislation that we don't want. But in reality, it's just pay to play. He's funneling money up to to the Spano family, to the Spano political machine. And in return, he's getting a lot of what he wants.
I mean, that's actually public information. They have hired Empire City
for
lobbying. A lot of companies actually in Yonkers, including Empress, who I've talked about recently.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's nothing illegal about it, but when it's when at the local.
I mean, and what lobbying would they be doing though for these unions?
That's a good question, because the rumor is that they're not really doing much.
But I mean, even if they were doing so, what kind of lobbying are they supposed to be doing? I'm just wondering, like, for the pharmaceutical companies, you lobby for certain bills and, to pass, or maybe it can make it easier to put a product out, in the market. So what would a union want a lobbying company to lobby for, with the city that is?
There's always legislation before the floor up in Albany that will, that cops have some stake in one way or another.
I got you. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
At least they feel they have some stake in.
Like bail reform.
Right.
Change bail reform now. We can lobby for that.
Example. I mean, that affects society as a whole.
Right.
But, certainly the cops would have. I mean, I'm talking about things more like.
Well, it affects the cops when these guys are getting released right away and they have to arrest them all over again after they just did, making their jobs more difficult, compounding the problem, right?
I remember getting an email notice from the CLSA that there was a bill before the floor up in Albany that one of the members was proposing that if a cop were to retire or resign while he was under investigation for some sort of misconduct, that he would lose his pension. So in other words, if you have to do 20 or 25 years to get a pension and you have 30, and now you're going to be under investigation,
Mm.
for some sort of misconduct, and you say, well, I don't know how this is going to end, so I'm just going to protect my pension and resign,
Right.
that you would lose your pension.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
like
Okay.
that kind of a thing, you know?
Oh,
So,
that could definitely be used against cops, you know, to
yeah, sure. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
so ostensibly, if you're paying a lobbying firm to do lobbying on your behalf, that's the kind of law you would want them to fight against.
Right.
That's just an example. But from what I understand, there really wasn't much lobbying going on. It was just cash going straight into Nick's pocket, and you know, in return, Keith Olsen is getting away with a hell of a lot, including putting his deranged lunatic of a buddy in as the police commissioner for a short tenure. Granted, thank God, but it should have been 0 years instead of 3.
Right. And
So,
so I mean, I think maybe Keith, I was hearing there may be some, there were rumors that Keith may be on his way out, and that maybe he's working some kind of, severance package or something like that. Maybe that's what he's, really shaking City Hall down for. I don't know how true that is, but that's something that I heard out there.
I would imagine Keith doesn't have too long left as a cop. I think he's somewhere in the area of 52 or 53 years old, which is, I mean, he could still have a lot of years left as a cop, but I don't think, all of his buddies, all of the Olsenettes, as we call them, they're all retired now. So, I mean, he's the only one left, really. So he's got nobody to promote within the department. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure he still has friends and people that he's getting assignments for and things like that. You know, certain people that he likes who he can have him made a detective, and he still has a lot of power. But his core crew is all retired, so I don't imagine him sticking around too much longer. And so
Right.
that could be true. It could be that maybe he's going to sell out on negotiations and get something nice for himself on the way out the door. I don't.
Right.
I mean, again, that's just speculation.
I mean, that's his leverage, right? We got the elections coming up next year for mayor, and so that
Yeah.
YPD endorsement, is huge and it's very coveted. So, that's his thing. Hey, we're gonna hold out for that,
Yeah.
and play ball when that time comes, and then get me my little, retirement things and all that stuff. Yeah, that's crazy. And from, I know you still know some people in the YPD and stuff. How do the, maybe if how the majority of officers feel about Keith? Do they like the guy? Do they think he's doing a great job? I mean, how do the majority of officers feel about him, right? Because
I
all,
think the
officers are
majority.
great people.
I think the majority of the officers are just so young that they don't. A lot of them probably don't even know him really.
Mm.
When you go to a union meeting, it's not like people aren't really talking. They're talking amongst each other, but as far as the discussions about the actual work-related issues, no one really talks. No one really chimes in. Very rarely. At least that was always my experience when I was in the PBA.
Especially some of those young cops, they happy to be a cop. They're just happy to be in there. They're making some good money too, because like the mayor said, the average police officer here in Yonkers is making about $143,000 a year. And so, I mean, it's a great job. I used to want to be a cop as a kid. I used to go around my apartment. I used to be home alone a lot, and I used to, just kind of. What do you call it when you go in an apartment? Just make sure there was no suspects in my apartment, although I knew no one was there. But I used to search my apartment with my little toy gun and stuff. That was a dream of mine for a while, actually. And I did take the police test in the city. I actually got a 98 on that. I got a 90-something in YPD, so I thought I was in there. I did good on the physical. And then I was told I was going to get a call. I never got a call.
Well, you know what might have happened? They might have got what did you score on the test?
I don't remember, something in the 90s. I did both in the city, and because I was, going to do the city, and then I decided not to. Then I went and applied here too.
Well, that's another way that the city uses the crooked shrinks, and that's to go back.
I didn't get to that part though, so I never met the psychologist or the shrink. So yeah, maybe he's a little crazy. No,
well, what they'll do
I never
a lot
got
of
that
times,
far.
and I have this directly from sources, retired sources who used to work in the special investigations unit. That what they'll do is say, say you take the test and you come out a certain number on the list, and towards the end of the list, it looks like they might get to you, but 4 or 5 spots below you, there's someone in the friends and family network that needs to go on. Well, what'll happen is you'll go to a shrink that has a contract with the department, and you'll fail.
Right.
And the 3 or 4 people after you will fail, so that they can get to, Friends and Family Network.
Yeah, it's like I've been
I
talking
got the
about.
direct from people who dealt with the shrinks. You know.
Yeah, well,
So
talking about shrinks and Friends and Family Network, and getting them into YPD. I've been talking about a lot lately of Tasha Diaz, managing to get her stepdaughter into the academy. She's now working at the parking authority, I hear, while she awaits the next academy. Right, so I mean, that's gonna be interesting, right? Friends and Family,
yeah, I mean,
Tasha Diaz to
right.
fly off the rail a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I heard some things. I don't know. I don't know what's
Oh,
necessarily.
we've seen some things, not just heard of, but we've seen
Oh
some
yeah.
things. Yeah, some of the meetings. I mean, let's get it popping. That's where I got that from, one of the council
Oh
meetings.
God.
Very recently she said, I'm going to keep it short. She was talking at the one of the flag raisings. She goes, I'm going to keep it short because I'm greedy and I want some of that butter chicken. I say, what? Unbelievable. This place is crazy. I'm telling you, man, the elected officials here, some of them are just unbelievable. I one day I know I'm going to do a sitcom maybe about Yonkers, and talk all about it because it's ridiculous. It's crazy. And so, I wanted to speak to you a little bit about, the police department, your experience, because, the talk now is the police contract, the fact that they haven't had one for 3 years. Now you hear Keith Olsen, putting out his stuff, his op-eds, talking about how, the mayor won't, play ball with them. The mayor's saying, well, it's not that, but, you're wanting too much. We just can't do it. This is a city where the average resident makes $35,000 a year. And yet, the average police officer makes $143,000 a year. So, I mean, they are getting paid pretty good. He's not understanding why. And, there are a lot of, needs that the city has, specifically, I believe, when it comes to education and, the needs there with the school buildings, and, so, I wanted to have you on there, talk to you and see what some of your thoughts were, and also to talk about your specific situation and your experience with the police department. I mean, we've heard a lot about that stuff. We do hear it. People talk about it, within the upper, I guess, ranks of the police officer, and, the politics and stuff that are played, and who gets promoted, who gets put on what unit, even gets into the academy, right? And gets put on there. And you're right, I've seen a lot of young kids. And I remember that around that time when I didn't get picked, I was driving down Lake Avenue and I saw this young looking cop, super young. And I was young at that time, but he looked even younger than me. And he was just standing on Lake Avenue in the corner. I guess that was his post. And I said, oh, he must know somebody. He must know somebody, because he was probably one of the people that went in around. I would have gone in, if they had called me. So I say he probably knows somebody. Maybe not. That was just a thought in my head at the time.
Well, I mean, there is a lot of that, but there's a lot of people who get on who it's not all.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The hiring process is not, the people who get hired, it's not all friends and family. Now,
I'm sure, no doubt.
Where you go once you're in, what kind of assignment you might get, that's very much like,
Right.
You got to have a hook somewhere, and that's a certain amount of that is common to organizational life, no matter what kind of a.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I said yesterday. Was someone was saying about the Spanos and the family members that they had. I said, I'm sure a lot of people, if you have a family that big, been in politics for so long, you probably would have a lot of your family members working for the city too. It's kind of something that just kind of almost like a natural thing to happen, just because, right? And we all want to always take care of our family and our friends and stuff like that, to a certain extent, right? To a certain extent.
Right.
But I don't want to say that all people who, or a majority of people who are on the force got on there because of family and friend. No, I'm sure they got on there. They did well in the test. They did well in, physical and all that stuff. So, they deserve it. They earned it. Absolutely. And they're doing a great job. I do want to say that, put that out there. They are doing a great job, for what I'm seeing, for the most part. I do blame some of the things that are happening more on kind of the elected officials, with like bail reform and, people just coming out and, reoffending, and some of the other kind of, handcuffs, if you will, that they put on police officers, right? When and not allowing them to fully do their jobs and stuff like that, and then even just blaming them for everything. So, it makes cops a little fearful of, really fully doing their job, like the incident on Nepperhan, was it? There's a Nepperhan over there by Elm Street, just before you get there, where the police officer was arresting the woman on the scooter. Right. And everybody was upset because they didn't see the entire video. It wasn't until they released the body cam, but they were upset because they felt the officer was just like roughing her up. But she tried to escape. She tried to run off with the scooter when he was asking her for her paperwork. Right. She actually tried to run away from him with the scooter. That wasn't gonna work.
Yeah,
I don't know if you didn't see that incident.
I didn't see it. I think I might have heard something about it. You
Yeah,
can believe me when I tell you that the last thing a cop wants to do these days is put their hands on anybody. You know, it's just
right. I
they
would
do it when they
imagine.
have to because you know it's just
Yeah.
because it's just such a hot button issue. I mean, it's
I mean, the officer was getting yelled at by by several people and stuff like that. You could tell, I can see it in his face that he was like, "Oh man, what did what did I get myself into?" And it's a delicate balance, I understand, but that kind of you kind of make cops not really want to go and really do their job. 'Cause they're like, I don't want to get in a situation where I end up losing my job. I got people protesting at my house or something. And especially when we don't hear the entire story because they just show a clip. And that's all we get to see. That's repeated on social media. So
right.
I was happy when they released the body cam footage, which showed the entire thing, and then a lot of people, they were saying, we made a mistake. Oh, the cop was right for doing what he did. So, that's important,
Yeah.
To
Well,
have
I
that.
mean,
So,
it's a lot of that's usually the case when you see those whenever those initial clips come out where it's just the cop. The video starts with the cop putting their hands on somebody in a way that looks
yeah,
wrong. I mean, whoever
yeah,
whoever edited that video and put it out there is doing it for that person. They're trying to stir it,
yeah. And sometimes when they by the time they pull their phone out and hit the record and everything, it's kind of probably gotten to the point already where the cop has to put their hands on the person. But when you just hit record at that moment, like you're saying, it just looks like the cop is just right away being aggressive.
Well, a lot of times they actually recorded most of the incident. They just chopped it
Mm.
down. They put the part that they want on the internet. I've seen it many times.
Unbelievable.
That's why
Yeah,
whenever
unbelievable.
I look at the news and I see something happen, some cop involved in some sort of a tussle or whatever, and I'm like, I want to see the whole video. Show me everything, then I'll see what
Right,
happened. I don't want to just see the part where the cop is
right,
tackling somebody or punching them. Show me everything first, then we'll talk.
right.
It's always important to keep that mindset with those things.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about the pay real quick before we let go? Cause we're approaching an hour here about the police salary.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, in a city where the average person makes $35,000 a year, the average police officer makes $143,000 a year. I mean, the mayor the mayor is saying that, right? But I also say, hey, mayor, but what about the luxury market or the luxury apartment boom that we have here in the city, right? So then why also bring all these luxury apartments if the average person
Right.
makes $35,000? But anyway, but that's what he's saying, and so what do you think? I mean, that's really good. That's a really good salary there.
It is a good salary. Obviously, I'm always going to have a biased kind of an answer because I was a police
Right.
officer and I understand the job that they do on a daily basis. I'm always going to think cops deserve more, man. It's a stressful kind of a life. It's,
Sure.
we have shorter life expectancies, higher divorce rates, higher rates of disease and things like that. Just the stress. And it's an emotionally turbulent job. It really is. I mean, I went through it.
I believe you.
You see
I've heard that
amazingly
before.
horrible things on a routine basis. It's I got to be careful the way I say this because the way the department got rid of me was that they went the psychological route with one of their crooked doctors. So when I say that it's psychologically challenging the job, I don't want to say in a way that makes you insane. I just want to say
Right.
in a way that you have to deal with a lot of stress that people who work many other types of jobs really don't have to deal with on a daily basis.
Right.
You're dealing with human horror. So for that reason, I always think of cops as a class above. I think
That's got to be like, I would imagine you get, some kind of trauma over time you develop, from seeing such horrible stuff, and not because you have something wrong with you, but just,
right.
Being out there seeing dead bodies or seeing a mangled body, children, I've heard cops talk about having to go to crime scenes where they're seeing, children murdered and how horrible that was. Immediately they start crying and thinking about their kids and stuff. So, seeing that repeatedly, that's going to affect anybody, I would think,
Sure.
to a certain point after a while.
That's why a lot of times, you'll see and I know it's not just in Yonkers, but I mean, obviously I was in Yonkers, so I know this for a fact, is that a lot of times the younger guys who were or girls, they're just getting on the job, they'll go to the precincts that are more heavier in crime and heavier on the incidents where you're going to see a lot of that kind of dramatic stuff. And then by the time their career advances and they come towards the middle or the end of their career, a lot of times they transfer over to the quieter precincts because they just had enough of it.
Yeah.
And they just don't want to do it anymore. They don't want to
Right.
deal with that level of horror in their daily lives anymore. So and that's why you'll see a lot of the older cops.
Johnny Limo says average person makes less because our silly council doesn't push for local labor, doesn't do any workshops on helping our residents do better, or promote initiatives to help where it's needed. Yeah, there definitely is a lack of services out there, a lot of lack of resources, and even sometimes, although the mayor's touting now a 91% graduation rate, but for many years, the quality of the education here in the city of Yonkers has not been the greatest, but local labor, hiring local labor, even just to, because I'm a guy that I say a lot, everything. And sometimes that's why people don't like me, but even Yonkers police, officers, right? A lot of them don't live in Yonkers, right? What's the percentage of officers that live in Yonkers? So, is that in a way not hiring local?
Well, they always hire
such
local.
high paying
you
jobs.
You have to live in Yonkers to get hired on the Yonkers Police Department. That I know for a fact.
Right.
A lot of guys do move elsewhere once they get on the job after a few years or so. There's no law or rule against that. But to actually get the job, you do have to live locally. And even if you're a steamboat, even if you have hooks, I mean that's usually always been the case.
Right.
It could be that some people who want the job move to Yonkers just to get it, but that's allowed. That's not against the rules.
Right. And I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong, right? That, everybody, if that's the opportunity that you have, you're going to take, especially if you want to, get out of a certain area to better, and this is the issue, what I say with the schools, right? And so even maybe if the schools, were in a lot better conditions, maybe more officers and even firemen, because I know a lot of firemen also move out, buy homes. They could, and plus you get more land, it's cheaper, you know what I mean? And so you get more for your buck, right? And so maybe, but if it was cheaper here in Yonkers, if the schools were, performing better, like some of the schools outside of Yonkers, maybe more of the officers, the firemen and the other city employees who end up leaving Yonkers would stay, and because, while it's not illegal and, it's not against the rules or anything like that, it does have an impact on the city's economy, and not the fault of the police officers or firemen or anyone, but just realistically, we have to be, honest about it. It does affect economically the ecosystem, the economic, I should say, of the city of Yonkers, because you have these high paying jobs that are going to people technically now that are not residents, so they're not paying the property taxes, right? I know their kids are not in the schools. They're also not voting here because they don't live here. So it does have an impact, to a certain extent, and it's almost like in a way, outsourcing jobs in a way on a micro level, though. And so that does have impact when our country outsources jobs, right? So it's kind of a similar thing on a micro level. So, that's my only thing. Even teachers, I don't want to leave them out. You teachers too, you buy houses, some of y'all got houses in Florida too, man. I know that I'm making that commute. So it must be a second home, man. I got to be a teacher in Yonkers, right? But yeah, so, so that's my, and again, it's not police officers' fault, it's not teachers' fault, it's not firemen's fault. That's what they could do and stuff like that. But we can't just ignore the fact that it doesn't have an impact. It does, and so that's why on average, city resident makes $35,000, whereas on average, police officer makes for 143. Obviously, they're not living in Yonkers because the average is making 35. And I agree with this comment. Why would an officer continue to live in Yonkers if they can run into someone they're arrested with their family? True, especially in this climate. True. I get that. And, Yonkers is like a big, small city, right? That's what they say. It's a big city, but it's really kind of small. I run into the people that I talk about all the time.
I was just going to jump in with that exact comment. Like, unfortunately, you do have to kind of give a little bit of special analysis to cops in that when it comes to that kind of a conversation, because people have asked me that. I have an uncle who once said that to me. You guys make a good paycheck here in Yonkers. You should stay here. You shouldn't live, wherever you live. And I said, okay. Now, but answer me this now. I have to do in the city, gang members, some violence. You there?
Right.
You there? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, hello.
So now,
yeah.
So now, do I want to take my kid to Ridge Hill and bump into one or two of these dudes that I've arrested, these really bad dudes, and
Right.
and now I don't care if they see me, but now they know what my kid looks like,
Right.
and if I live in Yonkers, they might find out where I live, and I mean, cops go through that. Cops do go through that. Cops, I can cite a couple of examples. I won't say any names, but there were, every now and then you get a bulletin in the precinct that so and so cop has been the special investigations unit has investigated and deemed that there's a credible threat against so and so cop and his family.
Right.
They'll give the cop a take-home radio from the precinct. The cop will actually take most cops don't take radios home with them.
Right.
They take the radio off their shoulder. They leave it in the precinct at the end of the day.
Right.
And one of those situations arises where
Yeah,
somebody
you got to make it. You got to call. Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll give them a take-home radio. You keep the radio by the bedside in case somebody tries breaking your house at night. So cops do go through that, and that's why a lot of them don't want to live in the cities where they work.
Right. That's unfortunate, that maybe, officers, especially here in Yonkers, feel like that. I used to live in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the cops, for the most part, you would see the cops that, they would had take home cars in Oklahoma. So they would park their cars in the driveway and stuff like that. So you knew where police officers lived. You know what I mean? You would see their cars in the driveway and stuff like that. And I kind of see that around, driving around Yonkers and even around where I live. I see, cop car here too. You see that there, the officers and stuff like that. But it's sad, that they have to feel like that. And I get that, I get they want to feel comfortable. They want to be able to go out with their family and not be able to, not have to run into somebody, that they arrested and might have been bad. And if they sit down at dinner and then they look over, oh shoot, there goes homeboy that I had to, hit over the head with my baton because he wouldn't put his hand behind his back. I'm just kidding. You know what I mean? So I get that, it's just that it does have an impact. So, nothing is perfect, I guess. And I think like what Johnny Limo said, we definitely need to at least, help, people of Yonkers here, with other jobs, at least, hiring local and a lot of stuff that's going on, here in the city of Yonkers to kind of increase their pay. And they're bragging about these, jobs that Lionsgate and stuff is going to bring in. But at the end of the day, they're only paying $15 an hour. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's going to be super crazy. But anyway, Anthony DiMaggio, related to Joe DiMaggio. Is it Joe DiMaggio? I don't know. I'm not a sports guy.
I don't think so.
Anything you want to mention before we end this year? About an hour now. So anything else that we didn't cover that you would like to mention? Anything about what your case specifically, or anything just in general you would like to mention before we go?
No, I mean it's a lot to pack into an hour for sure. But I enjoyed being on, and if you'll have me back, I'll come on again sometime.
Absolutely. You let me know. We'll set it up, and we definitely will get on and talk some more. Anytime. And I always tell that to anyone who wants to come on. And like John Limo will be coming on hopefully next week and stuff like that. So, yeah, definitely just reach out to me. You know how to reach out to me. You've been contacting each other. He says, Anthony DiMaggio is a great COO. He's a chief executive officer, chief operating officer. I think he meant to say
I'm sure he meant something else by that. I don't know.
He meant COP. He just hit 2 O's. He probably meant COP. He's a cop, right? Okay. Not a chief operating officer, right? That's a good thing too if you work for a big company like Google. Anyway, Anthony DiMaggio, it's been a pleasure having you. I appreciate you coming on the show and talking about your experience and being willing to talk about just the police department in general and some of the individuals that are in the police department. Oftentimes many people, they just don't touch things like that. But we're not here to, really be negative and stuff. Just talk about the experience, talk about what's fact and what's reality, and just it's important that people are aware of what's happening here in the city of Yonkers, especially if their tax money is involved, right? Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. Great show. I appreciate it. Anyway, thanks, Joe DiMaggio, folks, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. You have a great night. Let's give them crowd's going wild there for you. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. Have a great night.
Thank you. All right.
Take care. That was former lieutenant, Yonkers Police Department, Anthony DiMaggio. Thank you for joining me. It was great talking to him. We got a little more insight on, what it's like being a police officer, what goes on in the Yonkers Police Department, and even among, the negotiations and the union president. And, he has some interesting things to say about Union President Keith Olson, also former Commissioner John Mueller. So if you didn't watch from the beginning, when this is over, I recommend that you watch it from the beginning and hear all we had to say. Anyway, before I let you go, I want to remind folks again, because I know that's why Johnny's here on the comments. Don't forget, John, let him know. John is looking for folks to run for office. His impact organization is ready, willing, and able to sponsor the right candidates, those who are looking to do the work, ready to work hard, are serious candidates, right? And he will sponsor you guys by providing you with office space, free Wi-Fi, free telephone service, computer even, pens, pads, right? And he will even match any amount that you raise. So if you raise 5,000, he'll give you 5,000. If you raise 10,000, he'll get, oh, there's a chair there. He'll give you 10,000. All right, I got back on. So reach out to John Cater at jcater@impactnow.com. That's jcater@impactnow. If you're looking to run next year, we have District 1, District 3, District 5, and who is bold enough to throw their hat in the ring for the mayor's seat? Anyone out there? Anyone? Speaking of the mayor's seat, I have an interesting audio that somebody actually sent me. You know, I didn't get it on my video when I was over at the ceremony for the chairman who recently resigned of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I want you to listen to what Mike Breen had to say just before he got off the podium there, where he was speaking, you know, saying good things about the commissioner. And I want you to hear this. I thought it was interesting. And basically, he's letting the cat out the bag, right? Mike Breen has let the cat out the bag, I believe, in terms of the term elimination, you know, conspiracy thing that we've been hearing about. Listen to what he says. Right, he's talking about the term elimination. Basically, he says this is why, you know, referring to Joe, the guy who retired. This is why we don't need a term eliminations, because a guy like Joe Chinchilla, who was in the ZBA for over 50 years, great guy, did an awesome job. So basically, he's a proof example of why we don't need term limits. Right, that's what Mike Breen says. And then here, John Rubo response after he's done. Listen, I thought it was funny.
And I've spoken with my colleagues. You know, the term limits comes up every once in a while. But here's the perfect example of why you don't need term limits. Joe Chinchilli, 53 years running the... Joe, thank you. God bless you, Joe. God bless you. That was a good plug, Councilman.
And there goes Johnny, says that was a good plug, Councilman. So basically, again, you know, he's promoting no term limits, elimination of term limits. That's Mike Breen, because he's done. He is done. If they do not eliminate terms, Mike Breen is done. Right? He's hoping that he'll beat Nader Sage, but I don't know if he's going to beat Nader Sage. A lot of people don't think he will. I don't think he will. I don't even know if he wants to. I think he's banking on term elimination. I mean, he benefited the last time there was a term extension. So now he can benefit again if they eliminate terms. And he's hoping they do that. So he's promoting it. John Rubo made it very clear that he was promoting it with the plug there. So, folks, that's where we might be headed. And I think it's going to be the council. The council is going to vote to eliminate the terms. They're not going to put it up to the people, because the people are not really feeling that. You know, not that they don't like Mike Spano. I think people are just ready to see something new, but not that, again, they hate Mike Spano, although, you know, some people, you know, can't make everybody like you, I guess. But I think most consensus is that they, you know, want to see some change, ready to have things move on. Well, then reach out to Jay Cater if you're interested in running and seeing some change. His Impact Now organization is ready to sponsor folks, ready to match what they raise, and even help them with fundraisers. So reach out to John Cater at jcaterimpactnow.com. And anyone who wants to, you know, any organization, you know, nonprofit or any political organization, you know, nonprofit, 50C4s and 50, whatever they're called. If you want to get a message out I'll do that free. I don't charge nothing for that. I'll get the message out. I think it's important, messages like the one that John Cater has. I think it's important because I do want to see people involved, more people engage, candidates come out, candidates who may feel like, I want to run, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have support, if I can raise, enough money. I can't get an office. I can't, get phones, this, that, and the third. I may not, I need help, basically, right? And I don't have the help. Well, that's what John Cater is offering. And so that's why I want to get that message out there. And anyone else, who has a message, for the community or about the community, let me know. I'll put it on there. Term elimination or corrupt politician incarceration. Oh, I like that. You're a rapper now. Term elimination or corrupt politician incarceration. We shall see what's going to happen with this corrupt nation. Oh, you like that? You like that? I added my little line too. I used to be a rapper. That was awesome. Thank you for the information. Thank you, Jessica Santos. I appreciate you. Thank you for commenting. I think it's the first time I've seen you comment. Thank you. It's important to be awoken. Absolutely. We must wake up. And I don't mean just early in the morning to go to work. That is important too. But we have to wake up our minds, our consciousness, and rise up. And that is when we will ultimately see the change that we want to see. My husband met you earlier today. Oh, did he? Oh, cool. Hey, at the Little Prodigies? Yeah, awesome. Hey, if that's the case, let them know, man. We have a great thing going on there, and we're all about the community. And listen, folks, I heard this from somebody. They said, Freddie, some people think that you're an a-hole. Please, folks, I know I come off that way. My wife says, Freddie, you do it to yourself. It's the way you come off. I know I'm a little loud. I'm a little abrasive. I'm in your face. But I mean well. I do. I really mean well. And I love the kids. We love the kids. The kids love me. I'm Mr. A. And so I have no doubt that when your child's that little prodigy, you will see that, And so we're excited about that. We are very excited about it. And we look forward to location number 2, the Educational Center coming to Yonkers. Let the, assemblymen know. Nader Say, Shelley Mayer, let the mayor know, right? Help Freddie Vasquez get that educational center opened up. It's going to be for all ages, kids, youth, teens, young adults. It's going to provide academic support, career, college support. We're going to do sports already, baseball, basketball, and volleyball. We got this mapped out. We got the place. We got everything. We just need the support from those who can support us. Stop funding all these other things. Support a master plan that's incredible for the kids. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm excited about that. Reminds of a dictatorship. Yeah. Great sponsorship, Johnny. He's not paying me though. Sponsorship to play. Splendid broadcast. Keep it up, Freddie. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Every council will get a hard primary. We got the resources to do it. I have no doubt that you have the resources to do it. It's going to be a very interesting election cycle. I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of big surprises. I can guarantee you that because I know what's in store. I can't talk about it at all because they don't let me. And in order for me to continue to get information, I have to promise to keep my word when I say I won't say nothing. So I won't. Anyway, folks, I'm Freddie Vasquez. Today's Friday. That means the weekend's here. I'm going to get some sleep. Thank you for joining me. Have a great night. Have a blessed weekend. And remember, folks, it's important to come out and vote. I'm going to keep reminding you that. Repetition builds memory. I'm going to program it into your head. Remember to vote, 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 vote. All right? Vote. We have to come out and vote. It's very important. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Thank you for watching. As always, I love you. I am Freddie Vasquez. This was Basement Politics Unfiltered for Friday, August 26, 2022. Special thanks to my guest, Anthony DiMaggio, former Yonkers police lieutenant. That's right, lieutenant, white shirt. Guy was up there. Great guy from what people are saying. Great cop from what comments said. So I would imagine he is a great guy. And I've been talking to him for a little bit. Hopefully I'll have him back on. We'll talk some more. He has a lot of great things to say. And I appreciate his time. Thank you very much. Again, people, folks, reach out to me. Basement Politics. politicswithfred@gmail.com. politicswithfred@gmail.com. Let me know what's going on. Let me know what's going down. And if you guys have anything, that's should be said, I will say so. Reach out to me, folks. Together we doing this. It's a team effort. Let me get up out of here. Where's my end button? Where's my things at? There we go. It's a team effort, folks. I'm always here for you.
Ready, win. Fatality.
In another one, Mr. Rubo lied. In another one, Mr. Rubo lied. In another one, Mr. Rubo lied to me. And I don't vote for a person that lied to me. Thank you very much.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez. You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
Ready, win. Fatality.
Not long ago, he admitted himself on a live that...
Let's get it poppin'. Let's get it poppin'.
Ready, win. Fatality.
I'm hoping that this is not true, Sandy.
Come on, give it to us straight.
I'm hoping that this is not true, Sandy.
But I am the bad guy. But I am the bad guy.
I know you have a lot of women.
But I am the bad guy.
I know you have a lot of women.
But I am the bad guy. Are we? Let's make it happen, guys. Make me happy today. That's a lot of stars. Hopefully, we're going to get to 3,500 stars. When I get there, I will be happy.
Ready, win. Fatality.
I was raised in housing. I don't think you were. No! I was raised in housing. I don't think you were. I was raised in housing. I don't think you were.
Ready, win. Fatality.
Yeah, just a product of my environment, you know. Welcome to Yonkers, New York. Walk with me.
5 minutes from the BX. Whole team seeing checks. Hood now with we next. I'm from Yonkers. Home of Mary X on blocks in 06. OBG taking somebody's spot. I'm from Yonkers. Come on, hat. We can make it happen. Hop in your whip. We 15 minutes from Manhattan. I'm from Yonkers. And all the other bros know we real. 914 exit 5 for the soul man.
Yeah, just a product of my environment, you know. Welcome to Yonkers, New York.
Nigga. That's cool and all that, nothing but me, man. Yeah, nigga, why yo, nigga? Exit 5 up the small middle. It ain't hard to get to. Nah, it ain't far. Nigga, right, nigga. Yo, I'm from YO, and niggas pitch grams and flip dust, and niggas be blowing bogeys on back of the beat-line bus. Really young, slow bounce, Mofer Cottage and School Street. The middle of the square was where all of the goons meet. Ashburton, Locust Hill, Warburton, Ravine. Niggas hustle all day, trying to stack up their green. Can't forget about Orchard, Van Corlin, and Elm. Yonkers Ave, Chestnut niggas be making the sales. North Broadway, South Broadway, all day. South Yonkers is where you find all of the Oyes, Highland, Brook, Charlton, and niggas on Jackson. Kima Vista, Riverdale, all them niggas be stacking. Got Jones on Lawrence and the niggas on Post. And all them niggas on Elliott that be busting their toast. Harriet McLean and all of them niggas on Caroline. Royal Lab niggas on Craig sipping them berry. Yonkers. 5 minutes from the BX. Whole team seeing checks. Hood now with we next. I'm from Yonkers. Home of Mary X on blocks in 06. OBG taking somebody's spot. I'm from Yonkers. Come on, hat. We can make it happen. Hop in your whip. We 15 minutes from Manhattan. I'm from Yonkers. And all the other bros know we real. 914 exit 5 for the soul man.
Ready,